All right, and here we are, Mike Eggenberger and Bruce Buxton with the Graybeard Live here on Friday, October 30th, the last day of the Esri IMGIS conference, and that's what we're here to talk about today. But Mike, how you doing? How's Seattle today? What's cooking out there?
Well, doing well. It's my trip home from the conference was really short this year. But Bellevue is here, Bellevue, Washington. It is. I'm looking out the window. It is sunny out here, which is nice for this time of the year, and things are doing well.
Well, you guys had your share of rain. I think it was last week, and it's been raining for 2 days here. Just so I'm a little underwater myself, but that's okay. And hey, it's really funny that you should say I had this really nice commute home from the conference because we earlier this week you were eating lunch. What did you tell me?
Well, just a couple of things about it. Number one is there's for all of the things that I like going to conferences. The one thing that I really like about these remote conferences is, in fact, that the conference food is just a million times better. And the other one is, I can use reusable cups.
Yeah, the food's a little bit better, and it's I like food. Doesn't really matter what it tastes like, honestly, but it's a lot less dangerous for your health. I guarantee it. Like my wife has plenty of cabbage and apples and stuff like that, and it's just really hard to find cabbage and apples on the conference floor. For sure.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Anyway, let's work out. We're here today. You were my very first guest on the Graybeard Live, and you still consented to come back again. I appreciate it. I mean, I think that you've been a great supporter and a fan, and I think we're just going to continue to do this and hopefully gather audiences. So before we really get in the meat of our conversation, I want to thank anybody who's here. And of course, I can't see you unless you go ahead and put in the comments where you're calling or where you're watching from. And I'm hoping if you just go ahead and post where you are right now, then that'll help give me a sense for who's watching and where you're watching from. We try and do this every week because I really like to know. And then in addition to that, I think you've been a great audience, and I want to tell you thanks for coming time and time again. But you haven't been very good question answers or askers. So I'm hoping that you'll be reprimanded and you'll know that we want to answer questions. That's part of the reason why we're here. So please answer or ask a question if you've got one. So going back to this idea of virtual conference, Mike, it's interesting how this has evolved since COVID, right? It feels like a million years to me. I mean, how is it feeling to you? Honestly, I mean, I don't want to get in a gripe session, but I'm just curious. How does it feel to you?
Well, it's we've like we were talking about. There are those of us that really just get energized by being around people, and that's one of the things that I miss. I miss being around the people, networking, seeing our colleagues, seeing our old friends, and seeing and saying hello in person. So I miss that. The IMGIS conference, I think they did a really, really good job of adapting and sort of dealing with it. And I think the participants, the vendors, the sponsors, Esri, I think did a really good job as well of doing their best to sort of do what they do best. And one of the big reasons that people go to these conferences is the wonderful content and to learn from their peers and from Esri. And I think that job was done beautifully well. I certainly learned a lot.
We had a bit of a post meeting with our folks, right? And I think that if you remember to last week when I had Matt Piper on, and I asked him the question, why are you changing things up now? Why go from GeoConX to IMGIS? And he mentioned the fact that all these industries had a lot of things in common in the GIS space, and they wanted to take advantage of that. They wanted to be able to cross-pollinate ideas and methods and things like that. And in fact, when we queried our team, that's exactly what they said. Essentially, is that infrastructure is our game. That's what we do. And so to bring all of the infrastructure into one conference, there's a lot of opportunity for cross-pollination. There's a lot of opportunity to share things. Did you find that as well?
Absolutely. We did speak a lot to, we do a lot of work with utilities, and also with our state and local transportation customers. We come from AEC, and that's our bread and butter as well. And for all of these organizations, so much of it is around asset. So much of it is around things like asset management, planning, and the things that an organization can learn from transportation to utilities and how they interact, or facilities. There's a lot of best practices that feel at the beginning, but that's a best practice for utilities. Well, no, that's actually a best practice for an infrastructure industry or for some other kind of related industries we were talking about. We saw that several times.
Right. I think we did, and I think the users we talked to several people that were coming from the industry. That's kind of a common theme throughout what we heard today. So, okay, and it was interesting. Maybe we could just take 2 minutes and talk about the logistics of virtual conferencing. And Critigen, we're just like everybody else. We're in the same boat. These logistics of virtual conferences have been really hard to get used to. We had the opportunity during the conference to talk to several people and just ask them that, how do you do this? When you attend, I mean, we're manning our booth, our virtual booth, but lots of people were asking them, how do you do this when you attend? And a lot of it seemed to be all over the map. Seemed to be like some people just, some people never get into a virtual booth. Some people just look at the technical sessions and go away. It seemed to be just as varied as could be. I mean, did you find anything more or less surprising about how people engaged with vendors, how customers engaged with vendors?
I think one of the things so yes, I think you're a good question, and I think a good question, Bruce. And I think one of the things that I found was that was missing, and it is almost impossible to replicate digitally, are the random networking opportunities. Right. And we heard this in different ways, both from people that are energized by being around people and welcome that kind of interaction, and by those that don't, that while they don't look for it, they welcome it when it happens upon them. And in a digital world, you have to go look for it. You can't happen to see somebody across the hall. You can't listen into a conversation and and gradually sort of get into it and start to see what's going on. You can't see signs about, there's a group of people, over here for women in GIS or whatever the case is. And so I think one of the things that is really difficult to do is the more random networking that I don't know how that'll ever happen except in a human to human contact situation.
I think we have an opportunity here. So as I look through the list of people attending, there are some of you that are attending who actually put on conferences, who are participating in that point of view. And then there are some who attend a lot of conferences. And so maybe we could put that out as a question to you. And if you can come up with an answer, I'll make sure and put your answers out there for everyone to hear. But maybe bridging the gap there, that networking gap that exists in these virtual conferences, we have some ideas, but I would love to hear your ideas. And Mark Goldman, who is the director of AEC with Esri, thanks for coming, Mark. He says our best feedback came from the off-agenda roundtables and the Q&A session. It's the closest we've come to approximating real engagement. Now, Mark, you're not the only one that heard that. Actually, when we invited people into our booth, I don't know how other people did their booths, but the way we did it is we had 3 or 4, sometimes 6 Critigen people, subject matter experts at the booth. And then when someone was invited into the booth, it kind of became sort of a roundtable, kind of an opportunity for that person to engage all these experts and for those experts to engage that person. And we rarely had more than one non-Critigen person in there, but it turned out to be this virtual roundtable. And it seemed like everybody really enjoyed that. So Mark, you're not the only one to say that. I think you enjoyed that format too, Mike, right? Are you with me, Mike? Can you hear me? I think I've lost Mike's sound.
Nope, I'm back.
Oh, you're back. Okay.
I lost you guys as well. So but keep going.
You're a little fuzzy. I was just asking if you like the virtual roundtable feel when we got someone in the booth and we could kind of have this back and forth between them.
No, absolutely. And I participated. That was wonderful. The trick, of course, was to get somebody interested in coming by, because it was hard for folks to say, "Hey, I want to go to that booth." But we did. I personally participated in one of the SIGs, and I think that's what Mark was talking about. Sort of those trying to pull that kind of a conversation together. I think that happened. Jamie Crawford was telling us a little earlier about the women in GIS, and it was a similar situation. So I think it's hard to simulate that kind of normal human behavior, but I think we're figuring it out a little bit better, but I don't think it'll ever be completely replicated. And I think if I had to say what's the big thing that's missing, it's that we don't, there's so much of human behavior is that personal interaction, socializing, group making, finding people that you can learn from. And some of the tools that Esri used for this conference, and other ones that we've participated in, what they are looking for are reasons to match you up. And that means people more alike get matched up generally. And that's not the kind of innovation and sharing that I think needs to occur at a conference. It's the random conversation, like we said a few minutes ago, of the transportation person talking to the utilities person and finding out that, oh boy, that's just an inspection. That's not a transportation inspection or a utilities inspection. That's just an inspection.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, James stopped by our booth. Do you remember that visit? Yeah. So we had James is from West Virginia, American Water. He came by and he said, I enjoyed my time at the Critigen virtual booth. I learned quite a bit. It was great to interact with your multiple team members. It was kind of a 4-on-1 kind of situation. But it was fun. I will admit that was fun and it was enjoyable. I learned a lot in that session. So anyway, I think actually one of the things that we're learning is that not only is our behavior as vendors going to have to change to make these things worth our while, but also I hope anyway, that the individual users, the people who are using software, say Esri software in this case, that they're going to have to say, hey, I really did need some of the things that vendors had to offer, and I'm going to have to go get it in a different way now than I used to, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe it's like a huge phew, I don't have to worry about walking through that exhibit hall and getting, lambasted by somebody, but maybe hopefully someday it'll turn into, wow, I really missed what I was getting when we did that. So anyway, so let's talk a little bit. So since this is an IMGIS wrap up, let's talk about the goodies. Let's talk about what you saw, what you heard. Let's, in terms of content, tell me a little bit about what you liked, what you heard, what you thought was worthy of discussion.
Boy, there's lots, and as per usual, the content at an Esri conference is always amazing. It was jam packed with everything from the plenary, with Jack providing sort of goodies at the beginning, and really, I think doing what Jack does best is really reminding everybody of the vision of Esri and how GIS and spatial is really important to so many industries and so much to each of us as individuals and to the industries that we're serving around infrastructure.
Yeah, and I think Jack's the classic leader that says, "We're going there. Here we go."
That's right, I'm pretty sure he doesn't even look behind. He's just expecting everybody to come. Yeah. That's the direction we're going.
Yep.
And so I think he did, and I think he did again another really good job this year of talking about that and describing it. It's I'm sure it's different seeing him on video than seeing him in person, but I think he did a really good job, and I think Matt Piper, as per usual, really sort of got into more of the specifics in industry. So that plenary was chock-a-block full of a lot of good things that were very directional, and some good examples to remind folks that this isn't just a bunch of software that y'all should be buying, but this is about solving real-world problems today and into the future.
I love that concept of real world problems. It's kind of hard to say, you kind of get tongue tied, but I like the idea that especially in the content in the sessions and in the plenary, they present real world problems and the solutions to those problems. And I always think that that's a really worthwhile thing. I imagine that the plenary is just something a lot of people wouldn't miss. It's like I'm not going to miss that because there's just so many things laid out there in a good fashion. You know, something else you and I were looking forward to, and I think for me anyway, I hope it did for you. It lived up to its billing. Was the Executive Leadership Forum? Did you sat and watched that, right?
Yeah, I did, and it was interesting. I heard somebody say, "Oh my God, did you see the Elf?" I was like, "What are you talking?" Oh, Executive Leadership Forum.
The Elf. Oh yeah, I missed the Elf.
I saw the Elf, but no, you're right. That was really a key thing and a key highlight for me. And again, it was about an hour long, and I would recommend for folks that didn't have the opportunity to see it. I'm quite sure that it's available. I'm quite sure that it is available for watching again, as is the plenary. And this one, I think it was an hour long or so, and it had Jack facilitating a conversation with 5 or 6 leaders. And one was Leonard Brinson from South Jersey Industries, and we've had the honor of working with he and South Jersey for a couple of years now, and in a pretty significant program around utility network, and they call their TSA program. And one of the things that I really appreciated about the theme for all of them was really, success. The success comes from leadership, collaboration, and the technology is important. But really, what's more important is this idea of picking the right partners and collaborating, and partners inside the organization and partners outside the organization. And I just, and I look to, as a leader myself, I'm always looking for other North Stars out there and other people that I can be boy, what can I learn from that person? And Leonard is really one for me. And, I shared with him, privately after that's one of the things he represents for me. And I'm sure I'm not the only one, but certainly I learn a lot from him, just in the little bit that I see around how he treats his partners, how he treats his team, and the success that he derived. One of the key, I guess, the key result of that leadership style and how he approached it was, and the story for one of the presentations that went on was 38 integrations, brand new technology, all this kind of stuff, and go live weekend was when it was in March this year, and you'll all recall that's when pandemic was really starting to come across the U.S. And that's the very same weekend that South Jersey decided that they were going to start working from home. Yeah. And that was fine. Yeah. And they went live. And there was, I'm sure it's easier for me because I wasn't directly involved, but it seemed like okay, that's just how it's going to be, and away we go. And that's how it worked there.
I don't know if you saw, I did a series on LinkedIn earlier this year about that South Jersey project. And I interviewed Leonard and Bruce Taylor, who was our project manager, on that. And we talked a little bit about the kinds of things that had happened. So right before go live, right, they all went home to work from home, and they never had been doing that. And that just was this huge thing. But, Leonard took it in stride, and they just moved right on through there. 2 weeks before that, when Bruce Taylor he traveled up from Atlanta to New Jersey and got to the office, and there was a note waiting for him, says, you got to, come see us. We got to meet. And they sit down and said, yeah, by the way, I know go live's in 3 days, but we're going to move our data center tomorrow. Bruce said, he just kind of said, okay, well, what do we need to do? Let's figure it out. And that is kind of the attitude that everybody at South Jersey Industries took, and kind of the leadership kind of went that same direction. So I hear you with the Executive Leadership Forum. I love the representation of people, like I wish I remember the name of the guy that is the from the Department of Transportation in Maryland.
He's the secretary. Yes, he's as far as we know, the only person who is current secretary who started his career in the agency apparently as a GISer of some kind.
Very impressive. Very impressive. Okay, so let's move on just a little bit. Yes. Executive Leadership Forum was good. Also, there was another event that we were breathlessly waiting, and that was the Women in GIS Forum. And did you see that one?
I did not see that one. I had a conflict at that time, but Jamie Crawford was participated in it as one of the the leaders in it, and I think she described to us a little bit about what it was about, and it sounded like it was a very big success. And that's not, go ahead.
No, I think we need to applaud Esri. I mean, for putting this on and making that a centerpiece. I think that's one of the themes that Critigen puts out to the world often, is that we're behind women in GIS. We think that that's a winner for us, and it's a winner for the industry. And so I think that for us that was a welcome thing to have happen. And we're glad that Jamie had an opportunity to participate and be part of that discussion.
Absolutely, and no, I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's a great initiative by Esri and I'm glad to be a part of it. Go ahead.
Talk to me about special interest groups. I know several times I tried to talk to you because we've got some things happening and I wanted to talk to you, and you said, I can't do that. I'm doing this special interest group. So I think that seemed to me to be one of the things that you put a lot of emphasis on, your participation in this conference. So talk to me about what they do in the special interest groups, why people should take time to engage in the special interest groups.
Well, here's, it was interesting, that was one of the program types that I really appreciated, sort of from my vantage point. I'm not looking for a specific solution to handle a specific problem, because that's not the space that I'm in. I think there are certainly customers out there that want to know how to handle a specific problem. For me, what I'm more interested in are the families of challenges, the families of solutions. And so, I participated in the electric distribution one, and that was a really good one, because it the way Pat Hole from Esri sort of facilitated, I think, was really valuable. It was let's get a few folks up there to sort of really tell their story and talk about what's sort of important in their situation at their organizations, and it gave themes for others. And I think this is for where Mark might have been going. Themes for others to have these more conversational about how do we solve this challenge or that challenge. And I got a lot out of that, because it really helps me understand, again, not what a specific customer or utility or customer challenge would be having, but really what are the families of issues. And as a service provider, that's really what we're looking for, is where should we be investing our time and our resources to stay ahead of those challenges. And help out our individual customers as well as families of customers.
Yeah, I think that we like to get behind those a lot. I think that we learn a lot and we have a lot to contribute in those special interest groups. Mm-hmm. All right, another special event that happened for us was we signed up for the opportunity to do a video, a partner video. Now, I don't know, most of you probably know this. Oh, by the way, Mike, John Simpson says, hi, Mike. Thanks for the invitation.
Hi, John. and I took off, just by the way, I took off my LinkedIn thing, so I can't see that. So that was one of the reasons we were having bandwidth problems, I think. Yeah,
that's fine. The other thing, I've got a message here from Suresh Palupaka.
Suresh.
And he says, will you be working on Geo AI products? So Mike, this is where you earned the big bucks.
So I don't think I will be, because I'm kind of not that bright. But we do have a bunch of bright people at Critigen, and the short answer is yes. We do work within the Geo AI machine learning space. We are doing that now, and we are going to continue to do that. That is a really, really important piece of, when we talk about what are the challenges that we've got going forward in the industry, it's really, we need to get better around asset management, asset maintenance, predictive maintenance, working with utilities on the West Coast around wildfire mitigation. A lot of that is around a lot of buzzwords in this. A lot of that is around management, vegetation management, and being able to somehow take a look at remote sensing, drone video, and being able to understand what, very inexpensively do inspections and find out where high risk areas are. Same thing on gas pipeline. Where are those risks, so that we can minimize the cost of maintaining but reduce the risk of any kind of an incident that can be so devastating. In the worst case scenario, be extraordinarily devastating. But in the, even a little bit, it would have an outage to a couple of houses. So absolutely, Suresh, we are working on those, and we're going to continue to work on those.
Yeah, I think I can say that with AI, I think we are working as part of the developmental space, right? We're developing solutions that include AI as part of the solution, and we will welcome that because we see only upside there.
Absolutely.
Upside. Yeah. So let's go back. Thanks for the question, Suresh. I appreciate it. Sorry I butchered your name, buddy. The video, we were asked to, we had the opportunity to do a partner video, and I think we took a little bit of a different look at that partner spotlight video this year, and we had an opportunity to interview 11 people from our company just about what they liked working about working at Critigen. And I know why I think we did that. Maybe you can talk just a little bit about what you think we were trying to bring to the marketplace by having a video that has tell the market
for sure. And I'm hoping. Okay, sorry, you just froze for a moment there, Bruce. But to answer your question, here's what we had a couple of choices. We could have done if you like, a commercial about what we do and the fantastic story that we tell. But really what we chose to do instead was to talk about our people, because we really believe that the culture that we have, the people that we have, is really that's what makes us different than other organizations. And unscripted. These were for those that have, and as a participant in the video, it was unscripted.
Yeah.
And all Bruce. Bruce put together the sort of the framework of it, and really he had just 3 or 4 questions. And for those of you that'll watch it, I'm sure many of you will be looking for it now. It'll be up on the website shortly. But
really, if you haven't seen it, it's 8 minutes long. It's worth watching. So yes. go find it.
And really what it is it demonstrated to each of us without this script that what we care about is the people that we're working with and the outcomes that we bring to our customers. And it's not just the people we work with, our Critigen brothers and sisters and colleagues, but it's the customers that we work with. Whether it's against Leonard's team at South Jersey, whether it's the National Grid team, or Colorado DOT, or you name it, all of our customers, all of our teammates are really that's what they value, and that's really what came across. And that was one of the interesting things that as Bruce and I looked at the rough cuts. It was interesting that came across in every single one of the people who spoke and put in what they like about working here, what they like about working with our customers was this outcome orientation, this collaboration, and desire to do well with a team.
Yeah. A little inside baseball, since I think I was the director and producer of the video, and so I had an opportunity to coach everyone. Like you said, I had a few questions I'd ask people, but it was really interesting to me. Like I never tried to lead anybody anywhere. I just said, we could talk about this, we can talk about that. And when people were left to their own devices to kind of query their minds on what they liked about working at Critigen, invariably they all came up with the same idea. We're collaborative, we help each other, and we're concerned about customer outcomes. And I couldn't believe, like, it almost seems like we said, you say this and you say this and you say this, but it wasn't. It was totally unscripted. And those are the values that Critigen brings to the marketplace. And I was just completely gobsmacked by that. So anyway, well, that's good. So all in all, a successful conference. All in all, we learned a lot. And we learned a lot about, every virtual conferences we pull off. We learn a little bit more about interacting with vendors and with customers and with the hosting organizations. We learn a lot about ourselves and our own crew. Excuse me. So it was, all in all, it was a good conference for us. So we were glad to be a part of it, and want to thank the Esri people for putting it on. Thanks again to Matt Piper last week, because it was clear he was a big part of this conference, and I really appreciate him taking time to be on the Graybeard Live last week. If you didn't see that, you can pull up the recording, go to my profile, and you can find it there. Now, next week, I'll have the opportunity to interview Jamie Crawford. And you've heard her name here today. And Jamie is our director of, well, I guess the real title is, well, what is her title? Goodness, she's just
Senior Vice President of Strategic Accounts and Industries.
No, okay, the Senior Vice President part was the part I was trying to get to. So Senior Vice President of Strategic Accounts and Industries. In other words, she really is the big cheese for us and really directs us. But she's got such a great vision and a great way of looking at what we have to offer the marketplace. And it'll be really interesting for you to hear the way she sees our work. The way she sees it is collaborative. And so she's going to talk a little bit more about what we call at Critigen the collaboration spectrum. And that's how we deal with the clients, how we collaborate with our clients for outcomes that are successful. So you can't miss that one. That's next week on the Graybeard Live. Mike, do you have anything you want to leave anybody with before we go?
I don't think so. Thank you, Bruce, for having me on again. This is wonderful. So, hello to all of those who came in. Really good to see the participation, and wonderful to have a few questions. Questions and comments. Much appreciated.
Jeanette Fackler just was heckling me for saying gobsmacked. You have no idea how hard it was, Jeanette, to come up with that word right there with the camera facing me. I knew there was a word, but I couldn't find it. But I'm glad I came up with it. So listen, good to talk to you, everybody. We'll talk to you again next week. Thanks, Mike, again for being here, and we'll talk again. Okay.
Thanks a lot. Bye now.
Bye.